Bienvenidos, saludos. Quien les habla. This is going to be a special live stream because we're going to be doing this in English. Let me see if everything's running the way it should be. So, I want to do this in English because I want to explain what this whole Democratic Party for Chaos means. And I want to assume really copyright over the Democratic Party Grooming for Chaos slogan. Democrats grooming for chaos. We're going to come back in a few seconds and we're going to dive into this. And this particular conversation will be in English. And there's a reason for that. Most of my streaming is done in Spanish. And we are going to have this particular conversation in English. Let's see if I find the quick intro here. Give me a second. No, don't see it. We'll come back after this ad.
Another thing, Escuela Virtual de los Hermanos Cordero. We have this project. It's a beautiful project. It's been going on for the last 2 years. And what do? Well, we have 10 modules of different it's an educational platform. Let me start off by saying that. And we have 10 different classes using modules that we teach, virtual or mixed modules, that being online or virtual videos that we have designed in Spanish and in English. For example, OBS Studio and Rumble Bootcamp, introduction to cryptocurrencies like blockchain and ledger technology, graphic design, the history. I'm the writer of, the only writer in Puerto Rico of history of rap and reggaeton on the island. There's other books now, absolutely, but this was the first book written. This is actually 98. So our project is Escuela Virtual de los Hermanos Cordero. And you can take different courses for stupid cheap donations. 10 modules, really well done. I'm a professor. I'm a graphic design professor. So we teach everything from graphic design to OBS Studio and blockchain technology system that you can do. Yes. Thank you very much. And please subscribe.
I want to leave this in the background. All right, first of all, my name is Raul Morris. I am part of a collective efforts to have gotten Mr. Donald Trump in office, particularly in the Latino community. Voto Latino for Trump is our collective organization. We're grassroots. We're not sponsored by anybody. We don't have anybody telling us what to say, what to do. And that's a healthy thing, because I think that part of what we want to do is also be critics if need be, and make the right, pointing out the right ways if need be, especially when it comes to a whole bunch of different communities that normally don't say anything. So I'm a professor of graphic design. I'm also a social worker. And this project we've been doing for more than almost a year now. Actually, we started about like 10 months ago. I was pretty much, I'm a social worker. I've been working communities. I've been doing uh, community efforts in LGBT communities. I'm talking about for 30 years. So it's important I say that because some people say, yeah, you're my guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've never been my guy. I've never been a Republican. I'm just common sense. It's making sense to me that this thing that was going on was a chaos, absolute mess. We've had 4 years of the worst government in history, in the US history. And by the way, I am an independentista. For those of you who don't know what that means, is that I am from Puerto Rican descent and I want Puerto Rico to become an independent nation, not a statehood. So those are clashing contradictions when it comes to people who usually back Trump. But we've been backing Trump and we still think this is the best choice that has been made. And I absolutely believe that everything he's done so far is where we should be. So we were part of what back then was considered, way back in the first Trump 2016 government, we were part of the opposition. I at that time understood Trump not to be the best option, and I thought that a lot of the stuff that he did, by the way, he eventually came to terms with that in interviews like Joe Rogan's interview and even Carlson interview. So because he was badly informed and had people around him who wanted him to fail, that was all part of like the interviews that eventually came through, right? So what we did at this time, I initially started off thinking Robert Kennedy was a wonderful option and it was going to be my choice, but it was a done deal when eventually he became part of the Trump team. So I'm extremely happy with that. All right. So what is this grooming for chaos? First, let's define what grooming is. Usually you hear grooming very close to and attached with the pedophile movement, which is what? Well, these adults approach little people, kids, and they start to mess with their heads to create this trust. And with that trust, eventually cross over to all that sick, pedophile activities and disgusting things that these people do. So that's usually the term grooming. It's exactly that. It's about manipulating. It's about creating trust. It's about you're doing it with the intention of to eventually get something out of it. And in this case, when we're talking about the Democratic Party, I'm going to go back a little bit. I mentioned 2016 because I wasn't with Trump in 2016. I was with the people who were protesting in the streets. I was part of vocally and physically, with the things like Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, defund the police. I was part of all that. I thought that was the right way to go. It seemed to me like the right thing to do. Obviously, I'm not there now. I'm obviously not feeling that now. As a matter of fact, I have learned that a lot of that stuff that was going on back then was part of strategies to interrupt the flow of Trump's government. And it was done on purpose, precisely to be able to sabotage Trump's attacks on deep state, dismantling and working towards really, pro-American values. And what I mean by values is not just the family thing, but the economic thing, but the bringing the corporations thing, but the freedom of speech thing, but the uncensored or no persecution, no agencies persecuting, all that stuff that we saw happen post the last 2 years of Trump, year and a half, which became like this huge chaos with these organizations that I mentioned to you, the organizations like the Me Too movement, like the Black Lives Matter, and like the Defund the Police, and so many others. You remember that it was a whole bunch of different groups from different, even the students and the migrants and all this stuff coming together to be able to sabotage Trump's last year and a half. So it took me a while, but I eventually got to the point where I understand now what was happening from a different perspective. Then I started to work towards educating the communities on what Trump was saying, specifically the Latino community, the LGBT community, and other communities like the black communities and others, because there is the media is in the pockets of these special interests, and it was more than obvious during the COVID. It was more than obvious during the closings. It was more than obvious during the jabs. It was more than obvious during the last Trump years. So there was no balance when it came to the information that was given. So someone, and people like myself and others, that's why the things like, people like Joe Rogan and all of these podcasts became so essential to be able to talk to the people, to the masses, to the communities, and explain what was really happening instead of following the CNBC and the CNN and all these other, BBC and all that other stuff. Obviously, our project now is the next 2 years, and this is why I do this in Spanish mainly, because very few people are doing it. Very few people are talking to the Spanish communities and all these other communities that I mentioned to you about what Trump is doing and why he's doing it, right? So this Democratic Party has become the biggest enemy of the American people, the biggest enemy of world health, the biggest enemy of agriculture, the biggest enemy of democracy, the biggest enemy of free speech. And that needs to be said. So what's happening now? I mentioned that at the end of Trump's first 4 years, there was these movements, and I said about maybe 5 months ago, before he became elected, I said that if he eventually became president, these groups would be reactivated, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the movements towards reactivating precisely that. These people are being called, and these are the people you're looking at right there, and you're going to hear some more of that. But these are the people who are being activated to come back and do the sabotage. But I'm going to talk to you about what I think is going to happen in the next few days.
Y ellos la llamaban Alejandrina. Sin embargo,
So this is what we're talking about, grooming. This is what we're talking about. Um, Coordinated efforts around the U.S. Mobilizing, and the whys, because they were very confused. And when I'm saying they, I'm talking about the Democratic Party. They were absolutely very confused as to how to react to the Donald Trump strategies. All of a sudden, out of everywhere, came all these ideas and all these um, orders, these presidential orders. I don't think they remotely expected Donald Trump to be so strategically. First of all, I think it came as a surprise. Remember that Donald Trump didn't just win uh, Kamala Harris. He won the Democratic Party. He won Hollywood. I mean, he beat Hollywood, the Democratic Party. He beat media, social media. He beat the agencies. He beat pretty much everyone. Uh, World leaders. There were so many people against this guy. I mean, and he was pretty much. Let me give you some. I was part of the groups of people who said no. Remember, we weren't seeing any of the stuff that we're seeing now when it comes to you know what was happening with Trump. You would never. I mean, there's probably like what 200-300 people here, but you would not see during the campaign, the Donald Trump campaign, you would not see images showing people backing him. That was like one of the things that media in general decided not to do. They decided not to promote what was really happening with the Donald Trump campaign. And this is why so many people fell into shock when he won so precise and so solid. Look at some of this.
Go ahead. How did we get here? How did we get here? What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now? All I can say is how fucking dare you? If you voted for that man, if you voted for anybody other than Kamala and you live in one of the states that it was, close, or if you didn't vote, fuck you.
I keep going back to this, and I don't think I don't think it's funny. I think it's concerning because a lot of these young people were duped. They were lied to. They really were tricked because the media was not showing what was really happening with the campaign, with Donald Trump's massive events. I did 2 events. I went to 2 events and pretty much out of pocket, no sponsor. This is, all me driving 10 hours one way, the other way to see one of these events. One was in Pennsylvania and then the one in Madison Square Garden. And the one in Pennsylvania, I did not make it inside because I didn't think this would, I didn't think this was going to be that massive, And I think I still have some images of what was happening. Let me see if I could find them because, Trump was out of this. Let me see if this is the one. Hold on a second. No. Okay. So I went to the one in Pennsylvania, and I went the day before. I stayed in a hotel, and I went 3 hours before the event. And here's the thing: you can't go 3 hours to any of these events. You have to be there like, I don't know, 6 hours, 7 hours, or even more precisely. That's why there were people camping out, but you never saw these images. So when I was 3 hours is going to be more than enough. There's going to be in a Coliseum, but this is not going to, it's not going to fill up. There's going to be space for everyone. No. When I got there 3 hours before, I got online, and the line was a mile and a half out. And it was one of two lines, and they were coming in from different directions. This was in one of the small towns in Pennsylvania. I think there was more than 10,000 people inside the stadium, the Coliseum, and I got to just the outer circle, to just close enough to eventually there was so many people there was thousands of people. I mean, I was like a mile and a half away, and there was still people way out there doing the line, way behind us, doing the line to get in there. So thousands of people didn't make it in. And another thing that I saw that wasn't being told, honestly, was not being told to the people. It wasn't just white people. I mean, this whole racial thing is pretty US, this whole keeping the people divided in groups and in segments, and that's a very grooming for chaos, Democratic Party grooming for chaos. And you see that in the images. You see the flags, and you see the people who are there. There is representation of all of these people who feel marginalized, and that marginalization has been created by the Democratic Party. It's been part of. So creating these movements has been a strategy to keeping alive the party that started off with the Ku Klux Klan. So, yeah, I'm talking about the Democratic Party. Look at the history, people. Look at the history. So they've been really strategic in making all these people feel like they're outsiders, and they need to fight to unite to be able to have a common foe. And the common foe, this is the same thing they've done worldwide, when it comes to the wars and stuff like that. The US has created this, we need to have the enemy, like we're talking about Russia, we're talking about, the Arabs, or we're talking the Muslim nations, and we're talking about this and that and the other thing, the Korean and all that. So we need to have that. That's part of how these things have constantly survived and maintained, because it really fulfills the need for some of these people. But here's what I saw when I was at the Pennsylvania event. I saw all kinds of people. I saw people from different ethnicities, languages, and racial backgrounds. I wasn't expecting that. That surprised me, because I was thinking maybe if I showed up, I'm probably one of few, people who look like me. That wasn't the case at all. As a matter of fact, it wasn't the case at all. And that was very pleasing and satisfying to see that this movement that followed Trump, you want to call it whatever you want to call it, was really more rainbow. As a matter of fact, some people, and when I mean by rainbow is multicolored, not the rainbow flag thing, because I know of at least 3 people, one I interviewed, and who was with us in one of our programs. If you want to follow that one through, you can. And she's part of the LGBT community, and very outspoken. And saludos, Vero Torpe. So very outspoken, and she's been on this program precisely talking about that. So that was one of those other things that you would expect you wouldn't expect, like the people from LGBT communities and the people from the religious communities and the people like myself who are activists, who are environmentalists, who are LGBT educators, and all of this stuff. All you didn't expect that, Latino community, Black communities, and all these other communities, Asian communities, Haitian communities. I met not that long ago a group of Haitians from Florida who are also a part of this movement. So it's a beautiful, really beautiful thing. So that was my first experience running into that, and being in Pennsylvania. Obviously, when I saw that, a lot of things just reaffirmed, just at the beginning confused me, but then I was like, hey, I've been lied to. So I was part of this, grooming thing where I wasn't being told by the media that all this stuff was happening, that all these people were a part of. If you don't know, now you know that the Latino communities, the Black communities, and other communities were the ones who basically got Trump in. He had the masses when it comes to the established communities, but then these other communities called minorities. I don't like calling myself a minority. I'm a majority of one, absolutely, and I think that a lot of people feel that way. But these other communities that weren't expected, that usually vote, like the Black man, like the Latino man, like the LGBT communities and all that, LGBT communities. I keep saying the trans movement, I'm not too sure of, but I know at least the lesbian and gay and bisexual. I know people who represent that, like I mentioned. Beto is one of them. And they voted in favor of Trump. So the Democratic Party wasn't expecting that. And this is why you got someone like Obama. And this is why you got someone like Oprah Winfrey. And this is why you got people like Jennifer Gonzalez or Jennifer Lopez, all these artists, that were even rappers, and the Jay-Z's and all this stuff. All these people who got paid to say they were backing what was her name? Kamala Harris, right? So the second event, and again, Democratic Party grooming is about just ghosting and lying and social experiments on people, and how to create false media narratives and all that stuff. That thing just blew up in their face. And here's the amazing thing about what we're seeing now, that no matter what they say, like they put the images on Elon Musk with the left hand and all that stuff, and doing the right or left, I'm not sure exactly which one it is, doing the whole Nazi thing and calling Trump, Hitler and all that stuff. People that pretty much lost its effect. And there's a lot of things where I absolutely agree with what's going on so far. We're not even a month in yet. This is like 3 weeks. And there's a lot of things that I'm with, and I think that Donald Trump we can coincide. We're not going to be 100% on anything. I don't think anyone, I don't remember any president, governor, or senator that I've been 100% with. What I do know is that what he said he was gonna do, he will do, because he's been doing it since day one. I want the war to stop in Ukraine. I want the Palestinian state, two-state solution, and the genocide to stop immediately. I think Netanyahu is a criminal and should be put in jail. These are things where I don't agree with Donald Trump on, but he's already doing the censor, to the censor, bringing back the freedom of speech. He's already dismantling the deep state. He's already doing the taking away the restrictions on censorship in social media. So there are so many things, the whole migrant thing, the whole, controlling the migration, because it's not about people who are different or migrants. This nation was built with migrants and on migrants and about migrants, because the only ones that were officially here were the natives Americans, who are still here, who are still not being recognized as, and who are still living in places like, these restricted areas with laws that are, that should be dismantled, and reservations and all that stuff. It just seems so, so World War II camps kind of thing. That needs to stop. And that wasn't talked about during the Trump, but it's something that I think it's important, because the only people who were here and who have the rights to was the Native Americans. So everyone else is a migrant. And when we're talking about migrants, that's not what Trump has been pointing out. He's talking specifically about the people who are here without waiting online, the people who are here who didn't go through the process, the people who are here who crossed over, and definitely the people who are here with other intentions. Because most of the people who came and who are here, who are migrants, that's all of us, including myself, came here to the US because of all the good things that we were told about the US, and finding out that not everything is so good when you're living here, because working, it's all about working. But you did the getting online thing, and there's a lot of people that I know, that I love, that I respect, that did precisely that. And those are not the people that we're talking about. We're talking about the people like the Tren de Agua. We're talking about the people like the Mara Salvatrucha. We're talking about really dangerous people. And it's been more than obvious that those are the people who have been, destroying the way of life and creating all this disaster. And Democrats not pointing that out and not having control over that is precisely the reason why they lost, amongst other things, amongst the coup against Biden, against, trying to sell and this whole operating or having surgeries on kids and all this crazy stuff that you think this is like, wow, is this a real, is this reality? But I think they lost because of that. People aren't stupid. So going back, in closing, Democratic Party grooming for chaos is reactivating all of these groups again during the next weeks and months. Like I said, what's going to happen? I think they won't have the movement necessary. I think it's going to push these people to do stupider, dumb and dumber things. And I'm talking about the Democratic Party, and I'm talking about the special interests, and I'm talking about things like, terrorism things. And I think they're gonna pull these stunts eventually. But here's something interesting that happened during the last 4 years of Biden. They created this level of persecution that could be defined as the new standard. And it's going to be hard for them to come back and point out, if Trump ever, look, right now, he just took away the Biden and all of these other, access to special information, military access and all that other stuff. All these people, federal, wise. And that was something they did to him. And I had never heard about that before, but now it's being told. Yeah, now he's not allowing Biden to have, because Biden, we know, sadly, is not capable. He wasn't capable, but during the 4 years, and we don't even know the Blinken. We don't know who was behind that government. We do know that it was chaos, horrible. It was the worst 4 years of American modern history. There is no doubt in anyone's mind, and that's the reason why Trump won so solidly. So I think it's going to be hard for them to do these things, these terrorism things, without Trump using precisely the same strategies that they used on him. And it would be difficult for them to argue, because things like they took away Donald Trump's access to the federal information just after he finished his presidency, and now he's doing it to Biden, and no one can say otherwise because it's what was done to him. That's a new standard of things that had never been talked about before to any other president. This whole taking presidents or candidates through the system, accusing them fakely, creating, using the agencies. Those are the things that they have, the whole weaponizing of agencies. Those are the things, those are the levels that Biden and the whole Blinken and the whole Kamala thing reached. So now it's hypocritical. It's going to be very difficult for people who are thinking about doing these things, and they left the door wide open for Donald Trump to be able to do all this stuff, and they won't be able to come back. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. That's not the country that I want to live in, but I don't want to live in the country where we're being terrorized by a political party and special interest. And I know that's kind of like contradicting, because it's really been the way it's been for probably decades. I absolutely believe that if you want to beat Donald Trump, you got to do it in the elections. And the next 2 years are going to be vital for Donald Trump's 4 years or 12 years. And I say 12 years, I know people be like, no, 12 years, because he, like the Kennedys, it's a brand. He, like the Kennedy, is a dynasty, and he's got several sons and daughters who are very capable and very smart. So this can be like a 12-year thing happening if he does what he's supposed to do within the next 2 years. So far, difficult to say hasn't been happening already. I think Trump has been doing everything he said he was going to do and more. So I want to thank you. This is a particular Arakata Kamakondo. This is the channel. Please subscribe. We'll do in English eventually. We're mostly doing our live streaming in Spanish, but we'll do this every once in a while just to talk about some of these issues. Things like Democratic Party for grooming. Remember, you heard it here first. Thank you very much. Subscribe, and please, anything you want to tell me, let me know so I can make this better. Again, my name is Raul Morris. I am a graphic design professor and a social worker. So hope to see you real soon. Thank you.
Y ellos la llamaban Alejandrina.